I've recently been very interested in heroes, and what makes them such. During my research I came across this very interesting quote that follows like this. The hero is the individual at the peak, the victor, the champion, the wit, the eventually successful and deserving underdog, the speaker of truth under perilous circumstances. The stories we create, watch, listen to, and remember center themselves on actions and attitudes we find interesting, compelling, and worthy of communication as a consequence of our own personal experience with both admirable and detestable people. This made me think about all the different types of heroes we see in stories, both ancient and modern. So please relax while I walk you through the main hero archetypes. The classical epic hero. This hero is essentially a perfect person, who usually represents a cultural ideal of what a hero should be. They are typically strong, courageous, and faultless. This doesn't make them bad characters because their function is usually for the sake of propelling an epic tale or allegory. As such, their almost superhuman ability and unbreakable resolve makes them an ideal vehicle for sweeping voyages and momentous quests, where the journey is more important than the character. Think Hercules or Odysseus from ancient Greek tales, Momotaro or Kintaro from Japanese folklore, or Thor and Beowulf from Norse and Germanic folk stories respectively. The Everyman Hero. This type of hero is almost the opposite to our classical hero, as they tend to start their stories weak and oppressed in some regard. They are usually ordinary people thrust into extraordinary circumstances, and their heroism comes from their strength to rise and meet a challenge. This is what we've come to see as the most well-rounded and typical hero in most modern writing, as they tend to be flawed but noble individuals, just trying to do the right thing despite their limitations. These are great because, unlike Hercules, it is easier for most readers to connect and to relax with these heroes. Examples include Harry Potter, Bilbo and Frodo Baggins, Ellen Ripley from Aliens, or Katniss Everdeen in The Hunger Games. The superhero. This is probably no stranger to most people and serves as a modern, more natural extension of the classical hero from eons past. The superhero, as the name suggests, is gifted with supernatural abilities, and very much reflects the values of the society that they find themselves in. Their purpose is to inspire us as well as instill social principles such as justice. Again, these are very useful in allegorical stories when speaking to larger messages, but do run the risk of being heavily contrived and shallow if done wrong. Great examples include Superman, Ultraman, El Santo, or Exo. The anti-hero. This is a very common concept in lots of recent and modern novels and films. Essentially, your anti-hero is a character who lacks many of the typical heroic characteristics, such as empathy, honesty, or bravery, but still possesses some strong sense of right and wrong. These are often portrayed as having good intentions and morals, but frowned upon methods that lead to them being ostracized from their community. These characters are useful for showing a more realistic side of heroism, in that you don't need to be perfect in order to be a hero. More than that, they can be very entertaining and unpredictable due to not being constrained by heroic expectations. Fantastic examples are Jay Gatsby, John Yossarian in Catch-22, Harley Quinn, or Logan. The Byronic Hero. Another common hero, but this type is often dark and brooding. They are usually mysterious characters and give very little emotion or information about their own life. They possess a strong sense of independence and individualism, but also feel passionately about their morals and ideas of right and wrong, at least in their own view. Like our anti-hero, they often have questionable ways of getting solutions, and ultimately the reader is left undecided if the character is actually good or not. Importantly, to qualify as a hero, they need to have some redeeming qualities that the reader can empathize with and make them interested in. Think Tommy Shelby from Peaky Blinders, Joe from Caroline Kepner's You, or the Phantom from The Phantom of the Opera. The tragic hero. This type of hero tends to show some similarity to our classical hero in that they are noble, respected, and idealized versions of the culture they represent. However, they usually serve as warnings and more realistic personifications of the issues and the values they propagate. These heroes always suffer a downfall due to a tragic flaw or an error in judgment. They make us pity and fear for them because their virtues are so clearly going to be their downfall too, and we know they are too noble or stubborn to turn from their path. Shakespeare loved tragic heroes such as Othello, Hamlet, Romeo, and Macbeth, but other examples, both old and new, are Ned Stark in A Song of Ice and Fire or Oedipus in Oedipus Rex. The reluctant hero. We can even call this one the accidental hero. Very similar to our everyman, but distinct enough to stand apart, is the hero who doesn't want to be a hero. This can share elements with our Byronic heroes too, but usually this type of hero is one whom heroism is thrust upon, rather than them actively embracing it with will or determination. This may be more realistic than others, but you should note that reluctant heroes can be boring for readers. Why would they want to follow a story if the hero doesn't want to follow the story either? Typically, however, these characters can be very interesting, as it can be fun to see their dynamic as they are forced to be heroes by the circumstances rather than by choice. Examples include Han Solo from Star Wars, Rincewind from the Discworld series, Maya in Catherine Anderson's The Goblin Emperor. The Stoic Hero. This is a hero who, like the Byronic Hero, is closed off and, well, stoic. You'll find this type in most action books, where action itself is more important than the character or their development. These heroes tend to be developed from the beginning, and the narrative revolves more around them applying skills rather than growing and learning new ones. They tend to be dismissive of dialogue and use their physical prowess or expert knowledge in certain fields to solve problems, rather than establishing relationships or being emotionally vulnerable. They are typically practical, logical, and not prone to emotional outbursts. Think Geralt from the Witcher series, Mark Watney from The Martian, Atticus Finch, or John Wick from the series of the same name. The Romantic Hero. The opposite of our Stoic hero is the Romantic hero, who, rather than closing off their emotions, actively embraces them to make their impact felt in a positive way. They tend to be sensitive and value individualism and personal expression over immediate physical action. They are great for books concerned with more introspection and self-reflection, making them great for slower, more thoughtful books. People such as Andrzej Bolkonsky in War and Peace, Miss Havisham in Great Expectations, or Mr. Darcy in Pride and Prejudice are great examples of our romantic heroes. This is just a small list of the most common and distinct hero archetypes. Of course there are others, and many heroes do not fit so neatly into just one category, and often combine two or more of the listed types. But if you keep these in mind, and design your hero to fit broadly into one or two of these categories, you're more likely to create a memorable and interesting hero. One that is worthy of remembrance and communication.